everyone, and welcome to another edition of Paul's Cinema Picks of the Week. I am Brantford's film enthusiast, Paul Westbrook, and today we're going to be talking about a comedy team with this one special quote. One time I shot an elephant in my pajamas. How he got in my pajamas, I'll never know. If you know that quote, it was from a group of comedians known as the Marx Brothers: Groucho, Harpo, Chico. And there was Zeppo, and there was Gummo. Gummo was not in the show business then, but Groucho, Harpo, and Chico, the three most famous Marx Brothers, were stars of some of the most funniest movies of the 1930s and 1940s, all the way into the 1950s, and I think the 60s, the start of it anyway. But anyway, yes. The Marx Brothers, before they became major comedians, started off in vaudeville and doing stage shows. That's how the characters were formed. Groucho, his real name was Julius Marx, and there was Harpo, and then Harpo, he was the more silent one. He was the one that was famous for blowing the little trumpet, and then when he sounded like when he talked, because he talked in real life, but he didn't. In his character, it was more silent. Then there was the Chico. He was the funniest man, as he would say it. Yeah, because he did the Italian accent and stuff. And he was actually famous for being the piano player of the group. And unfortunately, in real life, he was a heavy gambler, and he loved his women very well. Something that the other Marx Brothers found a little hard to do. That Chico would get all the ladies, and then Groucho and Harpo weren't as successful. But they were successful in their comedies. So I'm just going to do a little talk about the Marx Brothers through some films that I brought today. This one here is Marx Brothers in a nutshell. And this is basically the madcap, best comedic stuff of all the Marx Brothers. And at approximately 100 minutes, you get to see a lot of clips from many of their films. And it's narrated by the great Gene Kelly, who you might know from the Singing in the Rain, Pirate, and even Xanadu. Yes, I did mention Xanadu. And he talks about the Marx Brothers and what they've done. And their appearances over the years. You get to see unreleased film clips, you get to see promotional trailers, outtakes, exclusive interviews with the many people that have known the Marx Brothers over the years, and of course, like I said, the favorite scenes from their different films that they made over the years. And the Marx Brothers were probably as well known. Well, they were as well known as Chaplin, Laurel and Hardy, and Abbott Costello. But yes, the Marx Brothers were a comedy that stood out on its own because a lot of theirs were usually, you have the insults that Groucho would do that were absolutely hilarious. The sarcastic wit that he came up, and in real life he actually had that too. Groucho actually had that same wit in real life that he did in the films. Because Groucho went from doing film, motion pictures. Then when motion pictures started waning a little bit, and the Marx Brothers, they did their last comedy in the mid-40s, Groucho started doing the series You Bet Your Life. And that was the one where Groucho would be the host of the show and the guest. And they had a duck, usually with the trademark eyebrows and the cigar and then the little mustache thing that Groucho would have. And he would talk to various guests about different aspects of their careers that they did, and add a little bit of the Marx wit to it. And Harpo, in a lot of ways, he was Chaplin-esque in his own way because he was silent. Because Charlie was silent in a lot of his films and stuff, and when people saw Charlie in the movies, he was usually a silent film, although he did talkies later. But anyway, Harpo usually came out with a trademark little horn, and he had the exaggerated curly hair, and he would come out mostly chasing a woman or something like that, doing little whistles like honk, 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 something like that. And that would be how Harpo would communicate movies, and that was where he found a lot of the humor, because the humor was a lot like a silent movie. And Chico, he played had the Italian accent right down to a T. And again, like I said, he was notorious for gambling in real life. Like, he'd always gamble, or he'd have a lady usually on his arm. But he was very gifted on playing the piano. Harpo was gifted for playing the harp, hence the name Harpo, because in a lot of the movies, halfway through, he would stop and he would play a harp tune on the harp for people, and when you combine those two, they were the more musical of the three. Groucho was more of the humorist, the sarcastic leader of the group, but when you put all three of them together, they were just phenomenal. It was just an outstanding individual group of comedians, and they certainly made their eligible mark in the annals of comedy history. Okay, now, secondly, I'm going to show you the TCM Turner Classic Movies Greatest Classic Films Collection, and it has 4 of the Marx Brothers comedies in it. And you had Room Service, which was another one of their hilarious comedies too. You had At the Circus, where they used the circus as a backdrop. A Night in Casablanca, which, believe it or not, was a take on the movie Casablanca, the one with Humphrey Bogart. And, oh yes, I should ask my sister if she sees any of the shows that
I'm trying to think, but at the moment, no. Don't ring a bell yet.
But I mean, you're seeing the covers already?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you've seen... Well, Marx Brothers were around, like I said, in the 30s, 40s, and 50s and stuff.
Yeah, but I grew up with you as my brother, so...
Yeah, so you might have seen a lot of the ones.
I might have seen them, I just don't remember.
My favorite one is Day at the Races. I absolutely love that one. It had Maria Sullivan. She was Jane from the Tarzan movies. And, believe it or not, Jane, Maria Sullivan was the mother of actress Mia Farrow. That's why she makes an appearance in Hannah and Her Sisters, I think, which is the Woody Allen production. So, yes, she was Mia Farrow's mother, and was famous as Jane in the Johnny Weissmuller Tarzan movie. So yeah, Day of the Races, they have to save a Stanley Sanitarium from going under, because the Mr. Whitmore, who's running it, wants to turn it into a gambling casino, I think, or something like that. And what happens is Mrs. Upjohn, she sort of unwittingly, she's a patient at the sanitarium, and she unwittingly is a donor for Groucho, who is a horse doctor, but he comes in as Dr. Hugo Hackenbush, and he's the one that wants to help save the sanitarium, but the only way he can do is pose as this doctor of the sanitarium named Dr. Hackenbush, and Mrs. Upjohn, who's played by the marvelous Margaret Rutherford, who played Groucho's straight lady in a lot of the films that they did too. Like, Groucho was the funny guy, and Margaret Rutherford, and she was Margaret Dumont. That's the name, not Rutherford. Margaret Rutherford was Agatha Christie and the Miss Marple series. Margaret Dumont was the lady, the straight lady that played with Groucho in most of his early films, and was absolutely hilarious too. Groucho was able to easily play off of her, and that's what helped make the movie successful. A lot of people don't know is that Groucho Marx was also a friend of Charlie Chaplin's. In fact, they played tennis together. And at home I have a piece of film where Groucho and Charlie are actually talking about a tennis match that they're having. And Groucho does this little thing where he comes out with a bed right in the middle of the tennis court, and then he's laying there and says, "Wake me up in about an hour." And so a lot of people may not have known that Charlie and Groucho were both avid tennis players, but yes, they were. And it was certainly a great friendship on both their parts. And Groucho would later, when he also, in the 40s, he acted with Marilyn Monroe in a movie, I believe, called Love Happy. And so Groucho knew Marilyn Monroe, he knew Charlie Chaplin, and he knew a lot of the lot of different actors and directors, of course. He was not really a friend of Louis B. Mayer, though, when they did the MGM ones, because Louis wanted to have complete control of a lot of the way the films were run, and Groucho, I believe, once sarcastically offended him to the point where they never talked to each other ever again after that. Which is sad. A lot of things like that happen in Hollywood, but again, it's the comedy that we choose to remember. And remembering the Marx Brothers, they certainly left their mark on comedy history, and certainly are quite a few of my favorites as well. Like I said, Chaplin being one, Laura Hardy. But my friend Gino, yes, Gino DeFruzia, he likes the Marx Brothers, and so he actually suggested to me about this subject today, about doing the Marx Brothers. I said, sure, why not? So here you have 4 of their classic comedies: Day at the Races, Room Service, Night at Casablanca, and At the Circus. Now, the remaining 2 I want to discuss are, just got to get a drink first. Have to have a drink. Okay, the Marx Brothers here. We got Groucho, Harpo, Chico, and Zeppo, believe it or not. 4 Marx Brothers in this one, called Duck Soup. And Duck Soup is basically one of their premier comedies, and they said it was their funniest and most popular film at the time. In fact, the movie was discovered by students at a university, and it became popular through that because at that time a lot of movies weren't really syndicated for TV right away, but when the students, I believe in the 60s or so, they discovered this film, and it was to great acclaim from them. They actually decided somehow to get it more or less put on TV for syndication. So the movie was brought to TV and prominence through that way. And, believe it or not, it says here, it was recognized on the American Film Institute's 100 Years, 100 Laughs list on a show that did, and selected for the National Film Registry, which means that films would be preserved in the registry for years to come. Like certain films, like certain key films were actually chosen by the film registry and put into the archives so that they would be protected, and these would be films that would be of high prominence and that people would really, really appreciate and want to see. And yeah, it says here, it says, it remains as entertaining today as it was when it was first released in the year 1933. So it's been quite a few years since they did this one. And there's a quote here from Groucho on the back of it. It says, "I could dance with you till the cows come home. On second thought, I'd rather dance with the cows until you come home." So there's the insult there, continuing Groucho's character. He plays a, says, after being appointed as dictator of Fredonia, Rufus T. Firefly, Groucho, proceeds to bring the mystical nation to a halt by showing up late, insulting everyone at his inauguration, hoping to oust the unset new leader. 2 spies, played by Harpo and Chico, are sent from the neighboring Sylvania. Soon enough, war is declared between the 2 nations with outrageous results. So hence the comedy. In this one, you have the famous mirror sequence. And then there's a final battle scene which is entertaining and just out and out hilarious. And, this one is one of the most recommended of the Marx Brothers comedies. So, yes, if you can ever find it in the store, I would recommend picking it up if you're a fan of the Marx Brothers. If not, if you want to learn about what earlier talking comedy was like, this would certainly be one to start with. And finally, we have Monkey Business. Monkey Business. Again, the 4 Marx Brothers. And Groucho says here, "You call this a party? The beer is warm, the women cold, and I'm hot under the collar." So here you have, again, the iconic Marx Brothers. You got 4 instead of the 3, which were in most of their films. Groucho, Harpo, Chico, and Zeppo. And this one is a high seas adventure. And they're hiding from the authorities on an electric cruise ship. Usually as a couple stowaways, and then they pose as bodyguards to the rival gangsters, which are on the same boat as they are. And it says some of their best worked comedy scenes are on this one too. And then each of them have to pass themselves off as real life actor Maurice Chevalier, who was a very well known French actor at the time. And again, this was on the 100 Years, 100 Laughs list, the same one that Duck Soup was on. This one here was on as well. And like I said, and Thelma Todd, who was the ice cream blonde and unfortunately was found dead in her car in the mid-30s. And then you have Rockford Fellows. So Rockcliffe Fellows, Ruth Hall, Tom Kennedy, Harry Woods, who was famous as a Western villain in a lot of the Western movies. He played the heavy. And one of the all-time great films. Not as, like I said, Day of the Races was my favorite. Duck Soup was another favorite. This one would go with Duck Soup around the same, because it was around the same time that they did this one. And so this one is 1931. So I believe this was just before Duck Soup, naturally. But yeah, when you got the Marx Brothers all together, and when they played in a lot of the great films, then you had something that was really entertaining, funny, and like I said, after the 40s, the Marx Brothers actually split up. They made their last film, I believe, in the mid-40s, and then they sort of split up, did their own projects. Groucho's last appearance, I believe, was 1968 in a movie called Scudda-Hoo, Scudda-Hay. Or something like that. Ski-Doo. That was the name of the film. It was called Ski-Doo. Sorry, it wasn't Scudda-Hay. That was a Marilyn Monroe movie. Ski-Doo was in 1968 and marked the last appearance of Groucho in a film. And after that, he had sort of gone into semi-retirement. He was supposed to appear on an episode of Welcome Back, Kotter, believe it or not. An older Groucho when he was much older. Because Dave Kaplan, who played Mr. Kotter, was actually a huge Groucho Marx fan, and they wanted to have Groucho on the show, but because of some unforeseen circumstances, maybe Groucho's health or whatnot, unfortunately Groucho declined the appearance, but did take a picture with the Sweat Hogs, which were naturally starstruck because, great legend. And Groucho died in the year 1977, same year that Charlie Chaplin did. And to this day is still remembered as one of the great comedy geniuses of all time, as well as his brothers. And anytime you see a Marx Brothers comedy, you have to laugh, because it was such a miraculous troupe of comedians that got together. And even though when they went to... because I know they did Paramount, and then when they did the MGM, they weren't as successful. A lot of the films and the dip and quality. You had Marx Brothers Go West, The Big Store, and films of that nature. But anyway, the best way to enjoy a Marx Brothers movie today is rent some of the DVDs, like the ones I were talking about, and then see what you think, and then maybe perhaps you like watching the Marx Brothers as well. So for now, that's it for the Marx Brothers. It was just a short little thing, but I at least wanted to do a Marx Brothers show for you, Gino. So that was for Gino DeFruzia. So this is Paul Westbrook reminding you to like and subscribe to the channel. And as always, leave a comment below the video so that we can see the comments. Please comment. It's always important. I can't stress that enough, that it really helps, and the more people we can get, the better. And yes, pass the word around. Pass the word about this page, because I know a lot of people that like listening to this, and I'd say pass the word out. We need more subscribers, right, Jess?
Yeah.
We got to keep it going. So for now, this is Paul Westbrook reminding you that I'll be seeing you at the movies. So long for now.